if you were given a magic wand to reform the global healthcare system overnight, what would be the first 3 changes you'd make?
Number one, I'd get rid of all vaccines. Number one, I'd get rid of all the 3-letter organizations like WHO, World Health Organization, FDA, CDC, AMA. These are the American organizations mostly that I'm naming. I don't know. I'm sure there's corrupt and tyrannical 3-letter organizations all around the world, though. The WHO is an international one. And also the people that fund them, primarily people like Bill Gates and other globalist depopulationists, rich people who think that everyone else on the earth is basically worthless and should go away.
Right,
And them and
pollution.
yeah, right. And that only them and their rich buddies should live. I'd get rid of them.
Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Golden LLama Show. We have Mayim Vega, who is intriguing, a special person with vast array of skills, techniques, knowledge, and experience. She went from NASA computer scientist to holistic healer. So let's kick things off with a twist. If you could choose one herb to be your spirit plant, which one would it be and why?
You know what? I would pick my favorite herb. It's called Comfrey. I forgot what language it originates from, but the root of the word I heard, it means it grows. And it is excellent for regrowing bones and skin and just regenerating your cells. And this herb has helped heal me of all sorts of issues. My knee joints used to get out of place, and I would have to painfully like kick my leg out to make it go back into place. So this is when I was pregnant. And that didn't stop until I started drinking this tea, which had a lot of comfrey in it. And then also, I used to have cavities. I used to have dental cavities every single time I would go to the dentist. Every single time I'd go to the dentist, they'd always say, "Oh, you have cavities. We need to fill in your teeth again." And then when I was researching this herbal formula that had comfrey in it, Master Herbalist Richard Schultz, he said that he was one of my herbalist teachers, probably my favorite one. He said that some of his students, when they started drinking the tea, their fillings would start popping out because their teeth would start remineralizing and growing. And so their fillings would pop out. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. So I started drinking that, and it started happening to me. My fillings started popping out. And I was like, I wonder what I did a self-experiment, which I don't recommend, but I did a self-experiment where I stopped going to the dentist for 10 years. And basically, I drank this tea almost every single day of my life. And if I had any aches and pains in my body, because I also had bad sciatica and back pain, and it was terrible. Like I went to the chiropractors, physical therapists, different professionals, and no one could really help me. It was only this herbal calcium tea that got rid of my sciatica and my back pain. It was so bad I couldn't even pick up my baby or pick up the laundry basket and bring it upstairs. It was that bad, my back pain. And this herb and this herbal formula, it's part of my herbal calcium tea formula. It got rid of my back pain. It helped me so that whenever I had my tooth ached from a cavity, I would just drink a lot of the tea, and then the toothaches would be gone. I'm like, no, I don't need a dentist. And so after 10 years, I finally went back to the dentist because my 2 oldest children, they wanted to have braces to get their teeth straightened. So we're like, okay, I'll take you to the dentist. And I decided to go to the dentist also. And the dentist said that I didn't have any cavities. And I told the dentist that I had been drinking this herbal calcium tea for 10 years and I used to get cavities all the time. And he's like, yeah, I can see it on the x-ray. He said he could see on the x-ray the mineral layer that was formed through drinking that tea. And he's a holistic dentist, so that was pretty cool.
That's a very intriguing story. And while you were talking, I had this very funny analogy in my head because you mentioned that the plant means growing as a tree or plant, and a plant to grow needs water, which is what your name means. But moving funny things aside, this is a composition of few different herbs, or is it just one herb? You drink it once a day, you drink it before meals. How does this work?
Okay, so I drink it whenever. It doesn't really matter when you drink it, any time of the day, but I do drink it. You have to drink it like frequently. Doesn't have to be every day. Depends on your situation. It can be like every other day. For me, I found that if I go too long without it, I start getting aches and pains, sometimes even dental pain if I go too long without it. And I drink it about every other day, or sometimes I'll go 2 days without it, but usually not longer than that. And it's a combination of herbs. And I actually have on my website, I'll give you this link later too, on arukah.com, ARUKAH.com // cavities. I have some forms there that will take you to resources, which includes that herbal calcium tea formula. The original formula was horsetail grass, comfrey root, oat straw, and lobelia. I believe, though, that the most important herb in this formula is the comfrey root, because I've taken it out before and I started using comfrey leaves instead of the comfrey root. And when I substituted the comfrey leaves, when I used the leaves instead of the root, it stopped working. It didn't work anymore. So I had to add back in the comfrey root and it started working again. So because of that particular experience, my feeling is that the most important herb in there, at least for me in my body, is the comfrey root. But it's just the fact that the reputation of comfrey root and its name, it grows. It means it grows. It makes things grow. It's great for bone repair, injuries, stuff like that. And also, people should know that it's very controversial herb, kind of like marijuana,
Oh, do you have any
where
side effects with it, like hallucinations or?
no, it doesn't. What I mean is that it's gotten a bad rap from the government, and it's on an FDA warning list. People who sell comfrey root, the herb, it usually comes with a warning, or the FDA just issues a warning and that says that you're not supposed to take it internally because it could be bad for your liver. And the reason why they say that is because some weirdo did an experiment and they injected a bunch of comfrey root extract, which is highly concentrated, into rats in ridiculous amounts that not equivalent to any amount that any human would drink. So, of course, that rat is going to get liver problems because you're giving them this concentrated form in ridiculous amounts. And when you drink it in a tea form, that's not going to happen. It's not that great tasting. So you're not going to want to drink that much. And I've been drinking it since, I don't know, let me see, 2012, something like that, 2013. I've been drinking it for a very long time. Actually, yeah, 2012 is right. So about 12, I've been drinking it for 12 years. I give it to my children. I love my 4-year-old, 3-year-old drinks it. So you ask me, it's completely safe. It's just FDA propaganda that put it on a hit list.
I think the underlying issue why not only this herb, but many herbs are banned, and not only in USA, but in Europe as well, is because money. You cannot really patent the herbs by Big Pharma, but you can patent the extraction from the herbs. And then apparently
or
they are
synthetic
super healthy.
forms.
Yes.
Yeah.
But before we delve into all this conflict between natural therapies and the Big Pharma, quote unquote, therapies, can you advise what plants or herbs are in your first aid kit?
My personal first aid kit. The herbal calcium tea is definitely one of them. But another one would be cayenne. I think cayenne is a very, very important herb. It can stop bleeding. It can stop bleeding when we have cuts. You just sprinkle it on the cut, cayenne powder, and you sprinkle it on the cut, and it'll help it clot and stop bleeding. If you have internal bleeding, you can drink cayenne tea, and it'll help regulate and stop that. If you have an ulcer, or if you have just some kind of internal bleeding, it helps. It just helps regulate your blood flow. It's good for high blood pressure. It's good for your heart. I understand some people are allergic to it, but cayenne is a very important emergency herb to have. And another, it's not a specific herb, but it's a blend of herbs in essential oil form, is thieves' oil.
I know it from the Polish point perspective. And I gotta tell you this old story that we had. Usually in medieval ages, there were many so-called weeds that were growing next to people's homes and houses. And those weeds were actually the healing plants. And back then, it was a very common knowledge which herb or plant to use to heal or improve the healing process. And it's one of the many, many myths that the modern medicine increased our lifespan. It actually didn't. We still live the same amount of years. So that was going to lead me to my second question about the modern medical systems, which appear to be broken, which appear to be more of a sicker than healthcare system. If you were given a magic wand to reform the global healthcare system overnight, what would be the first 3 changes you'd make?
Number one, I'd get rid of all vaccines. Number one, I'd get rid of all the 3-letter organizations like WHO, World Health Organization, FDA, CDC, AMA. These are the American organizations mostly that I'm naming. I don't know. I'm sure there's corrupt and tyrannical 3-letter organizations all around the world, though. The WHO is an international one, and also the people that fund them, primarily people like Bill Gates and other globalist, depopulationists, rich people who think that everyone else on the earth is basically worthless and should go away.
Right,
And
it's
them and their,
pollution.
yeah, right. And that only them and their rich buddies should live. I'd get rid of them.
I agree with that way of thinking a lot, but I'm intrigued about vaccines because they have been with us for so many years. And the one example that I have, which is completely different from the modern perspective, is something called Kambo, which is from the Amazon jungle. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's super natural. It is basically poison from the poison toad that is used to cleanse the body from all the toxins, especially if you're about to take ayahuasca ritual medicine. So by doing this so-called vaccine, you're able to let go of all the things that have been holding you back. And it changes how you think. You're much more focused. Any bad habits appears to be dissolved, and you are ready to be healed on deeper and deeper levels. So my questions would be, why do you think vaccines are bad?
First of all, what you're describing doesn't sound like to me like a vaccine in terms of the way that we describe vaccine. That sounds like a natural substance. Vaccines are not natural substance. They're manufactured by pharmaceutical companies, and they come with a lot of adjuvants and now mRNA technology and preservatives like formaldehyde and all these toxins. What you're talking about, why do you even call that a vaccine? Is it just because you inject it into your bloodstream?
Yes, I think it's when we communicate with people, we attach different meanings to words, which
Yeah.
then can create confusion. For me, it's anything that you would inject to have a particular effect. And I think for you,
Oh.
it's something that was human.
Yeah. Injections aren't bad. I mean, I'm into intravenous vitamin C therapy, and I know of a Mexican holistic cancer treatment that has a very high success rate treating cancer. And they also inject a kind of, I would say, clarified, I think it's a spider venom. I don't remember what it is, but it also helps with cancer. And I would consider it natural. I don't know if it would be my preferred method. It's natural. Just because it's injected doesn't mean that it's bad. So yeah, I'm talking about something completely different, I
Like
guess, in the
COVID
Western world,
vaccines.
like the COVID vaccine, like the polio vaccine,
Mm.
those kinds of things.
So you're like big no on those.
Yes, the pharmaceutical injected vaccines, which have lots of toxins and are cultured on things that you wouldn't want in your body, basically.
Mm. In a world where pharmaceutical companies are the villains, what's your superhero origin story? And what would your superpower be in a fight against the big pharma?
That's not a theoretical question. It's an actual question in my opinion, because I do see myself, maybe I'm just a small minor hero, but I do see myself as a hero in that realm. You as well, because part of, I know, your mission and with this podcast is to bring knowledge to the world, unpopular knowledge, unknown knowledge, hidden, secret, ancient knowledge. And I think that is really the key. That's really the key. That is really our superpower, is when we empower ourselves with knowledge. And like we were talking earlier before we started on the podcast, people are just so addicted to those dopamine hits on their phone and on the TV, video games, sugar, all this junk food, that they fail to take time out to cultivate their superpower, which is truly knowledge. All the knowledge that we need to heal ourselves is out there. It already exists. It doesn't need to be created, doesn't need to be found, it doesn't need to be developed by some cancer organization. Our ancestors already knew the secrets to health and healing and longevity. And the problem is that we let corporations and pharmaceutical companies lie to us and tell us things like, oh no, breast milk is not healthy. There's a propaganda campaign that they used to say, breast milk is not very healthy. It's better for you to buy Gerber formula. And that's a more complete nutrition for your baby than breast milk. That was a lie. They used to say that, certain chemicals were good for you and they were actually toxic, but they would spend tons of money on these propaganda campaigns to push their chemicals, just like you said, all for money. I know a lot of people think that the love of money is the root of
All evil.
all evil. I don't think it's the root of all evil, but I think it's the root. If you love money, I think that only leads to evil. But there's other sources of evil too, but that's certainly
Blind
only
you.
evil. Yeah.
I believe like the science and medicine initially had good intentions, but nothing lasts forever. And sooner or later, people started to use them to gain personal benefits, to gain money. And once you got money and money means nothing to you, it's about control and controlling other people. So you want to influence the world, that the world does what you want it to do. And then it had severe repercussions because you would do anything to enslave people with agenda. Back in the day, people were enslaved using force. Now they are enslaved using ideas. So the
That's right.
person himself gets into this cage of his beliefs, locks the cage and throws out the key. And no one needs to force him because knowledge is, as you mentioned, such a big thing. It can be either used to build you or destroy you. Yet no one is teaching that. And you've built an empire around holistic healing and education. If you could introduce one holistic health course in public schools, what would it be titled? And what's the first lesson?
Oh, actually, yeah, I've created that course. It's my Arukah Holistic Healer Certification Program. And there's basically 3 parts to it. The first part is on naturopathic herbalism. And naturopathic herbalism covers nutrition, it covers herbalism, it covers everything that's related to herbalism, like homeopathy or essential oils or different things like that, Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine principles. Those are all related to herbalism. Those are ancient forms of herbalism. But the first part of the program is learning just the principles of holistic health and also how to identify toxins and detoxify yourself from that. And when I say toxins, I don't mean toxins just from food or something like that. Toxins in our environment, in our water, in our airwaves because of EMFs from computers and cell phone towers and stuff like that. And also detoxing from lies, detoxing from propaganda, detoxing from unhealthy relationships and beliefs that you have inherited from childhood or society, detoxifying from junk food, of course, that's got to be part of it. So many things that we need to detoxify from, because what good is an herbal formula if you're poisoning yourself still with all these other things?
I think
They're
it's like
just
raping the soul. In it,
that's a
it's
that's
not.
an interesting term.
Well, it's not really. If you're gonna heal the soul, and then you're gonna do really bad stuff that will impact the healing process, it's like going left and right at the same time. So you would do better if you wouldn't heal at all, because then it's gonna be such a huge shock to the body. So if you heal, just stay with the healing and don't distract yourself with all those poisons from the environment, the drugs, alcohol, the gambling, and all the things that people do. Because if you do that, that would be such a great shock to the body. And you don't want to shock the body. You don't want to go from one extreme to another. You want to swim middle on this journey called life. Because that's a saying from traditional Chinese medicine that if you go to one extreme to another, it's basically like sailing through the river and hitting the rocks from one side to another. Eventually, you will be so stressed and annoyed and angry at everything that you won't be able to enjoy the ride at all. And instead, if you don't engage yourself with extremes, you'll be able to sail calmly through the middle and enjoy the ride and enjoy the view. So I know this because I've done it myself. Like I have been doing herbs for approximately 20 years. And sometime on the journey, I got really, really lost, and it wasn't lost on purpose. I was lost in life. And then I engage with alcohol or marijuana, and it literally, on one side, you're healing yourself, the body starts to trust you, and then you hit it with a dose of toxins. Whoa, I opened myself completely for you, but you just poisoned me. So I'm going to close myself to you. So I think if you're healing, stay with the healing, but don't shock the body with different extremes that we go through.
Yeah, it's counterproductive.
Completely.
Very counterproductive.
Now, I'm curious if you could envision yourself 50 years into the future, how do you see the role of holistic healing in our society? Will we finally see a world where people prioritize prevention over cure?
I know what I would want to see in 50 years, but I don't know that's enough time to accomplish what I would want to see. And what I would want to see is the words of Thomas Edison. He said that the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet and the cause and prevention of disease. So he said that's the doctor of the future. Obviously, that's not yet, but I do believe that is our future because we're going to get over this. Like people used to believe in a lot of different lies, and eventually there developed a mass amount of people who said, you know what, that's stupid. That's a lie. And enough people accepted it so that we finally rejected the lies. And that will happen with everything, every lie that we have in society here today. But unfortunately, it sometimes takes a lot of deaths and a lot of tragedy and a lot of fighting before it can happen. But I I think when they hit us with things like the COVID pandemic and stuff like that, it accelerates global consciousness and awareness. when the harder they attack and the harder
Yeah.
they press with their lies, the greater the destruction, the more mighty, brave warriors are called and raised up.
The more you push, the more pushback you receive.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing lasts forever, and it's always this up and down, up and down. But life is about balance, so life will balance itself out. And I also do believe that something like this was already in the past, but we forget that. So we need to learn this anew. And one of the things that you mentioned before about homeopathy is having really, really bad rap. But I actually think, if you think really deep about it, it's a medicine that doesn't work on the atom. It's a medicine that works on the vibration, on the frequency that makes the atom. So in a way, you could say that this is a quantum healing medicine. But since it's quantum, not many people do understand it. And many people do think it's mumbo jumbo. And many people don't understand how to use it correctly. But if you are able to use it correctly, learn it well, you could really have some great results with it.
There's been a lot of evidence that shows that homeopathy works and that it's safer. And oftentimes the results in terms of patient outcomes and survival rates, sometimes it's a lot better when comparing, for example, in history, homeopathic hospitals to modern medicine, the allopathic hospitals.
Oh,
So the fact that homeopathy isn't accepted doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It just means that there wasn't enough politics and money thrown into it.
and
That's the
it's so
only
cheap.
reason.
I also do, it's not really about the method. Ideally, you can heal yourself without any external stimulus, but that requires so much faith in yourself, in our body, in God or the universe. So it's easier to be distracted with those healing medicines that work on the symptom, not the cause. And science or medicine, it is being used similar as religion nowadays. Back in the day, people have closed mind, and if something wasn't discussed in the Holy Book, you were not allowed to speak about it. It is very similar with science. It is not being confirmed by the science. Some people would discard it completely, but the thing about science is if you even have a perception or you start to measure the results, it will impact the final results because you put your attention to it. So moving past that, you have 7 children and booming business. How do you juggle it all without losing your sanity? Is there a secret holistic remedy for that? Or is it just sheer willpower?
There's a lot of willpower involved for sure. And I have a lot of faith that God leads me and guides me. But I started when they were very young, and there's only one of them. There's actually 9, 7 of my own, and then 2 that were inherited or adopted that I take care of. But I started when I was very young, and I always kept my children close to me. And what I mean by close is both physically close, like I'd always be there, I'd always want to be there, but also like emotionally and mentally close. I would be very open, honest with them. And there's really no subject that was off limits that I wasn't willing to talk about. If they wanted to talk about something, I would talk about it. And if I felt like they needed to hear something, I would tell them about it. Maybe use different words, but certainly just talk about it. And I would start guiding them in terms of and sharing my values with them at a very young age. And so that now that some of them at least are getting older, it's not chaos. It's we argue sometimes, but even that is good. Like letting our emotions out, letting our opinions out, it's all part of being close. And I think that's how I can balance having a family and running actually a few businesses, not just one. I also have a nonprofit organization, but I do that because from a very young age, I train my children and I just try to impart into them my values and my beliefs. And so that when they grow old, they're not crazy, they're not rebellious, they're responsible, they're very helpful. My son, and also I try to encourage independence from a very young age. I want them to have a driver's license as soon as possible. I homeschool, so I also graduate them from my homeschool as young as possible, which is age 16. I try to graduate them at age 16 from high school and then have them start college or some other vocational training. So my oldest son, he started college at age 16, and then he graduated with his bachelor's of science degree by age 20. And then he started his own business a little bit before that, age 18, freelancing and doing work for clients while he was still in college. And now he's 20 and he's almost where he can afford to leave. And now, he has a business that he can take with him anywhere because he's working from home with his business and he can travel. I've encouraged him to, if you have your own business that you can do from home, that means you can travel wherever you want and live wherever you want and still make money and you can see the world. I instilled that dream in him when he was very young. And so he's living that dream. And I'm not trying to, shelter my children so much that they cuddle them so much. No, I want you to be free. I want you to be independent. I want you to experience the world and things like that. So they trust me because of this. They know that I have their best in mind. And so and I run my house like a military. Actually, I'm a strict mom, but we also have a lot of fun and they understand that the reason why I'm strict is because I want the best for them. I want them to be disciplined and waste their time in video games and things like that we were talking about.
That's amazing and very inspiring. Through discipline, you can find freedom. That leads me to my question. When people look back at your work 100 years from now, what impact do you hope to have left on this world of health and healing?
My legacy would leave and my business would leave is that I have raised up holistic healers that are not afraid to go against conventional medicine, that are not afraid to take it upon themselves to see what their body needs, what herbs, what nutrition, etc., that their body needs. My track record is that I raised my family without the need for pharmaceutical drugs or vaccines or a regular doctor or hospital visits. We only go to the hospital in emergency situations, which so far what that has meant is if there's a broken bone, we're going to the doctor. But besides that, we do not see conventional medical doctors. Sometimes we will see a homeopath or a naturopath, someone else, because it's good to get a second opinion, but we don't see conventional medical doctors. And it is my desire to raise up a ton of people that have the confidence as a healer and effectiveness as a healer that they can also say the same. No, we don't need to see doctors. We know how to handle everything that happens and that comes our way.
Have an open mind and pick what works for you and discard just something that is noise, and instead of building you, is picking you apart. So
And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. That's the biggest thing. Don't be afraid to do that, to empower yourself.
Yeah, I think even if you fail, that will build your experience, and sooner or later, all mistakes are labeled as experience, wisdom, and knowledge. So in life,
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
need to fail to learn. That's perfectly fine. If you ask God for growth, will He make you grow, or will He give you challenges that will cause you to grow? I believe it's the latter. One of my last questions is
Very well said. Yeah, very well said.
imagine you're on a cosmic adventure with Baby Llama as your sidekick, and you're tasked with healing an entire planet using only three natural remedies. What would those
Hill?
be and why?
Only 3 remedies. And it's a different planet? I would say that if it was a different planet, then it should, I think one of the most important things, and because we're talking about a different planet here, number one, it should be their sun. I think their sun will bring a great amount of healing, just like our sun brings a great amount of healing. It powers our food, our animals, our plants. And unless we get enough sunshine, we don't get enough vitamin D, we don't get the energy. Everything needs sun. And the second thing would be probably their water supply, making sure that their water supply is pure and fresh and clean, because that is also a big reason why a lot of times we are sick, because there's toxins in our water. And also our water is mineral deficient. And that's a very, very easy thing. And then the third thing I would say is these are the things that we are lacking, that we need, is are they eating naturally? Are they eating the plants and animals around them, or has their society advanced to the point like ours has, where they think that they can ignore nature? Because that's one of our biggest problems, is that we are ignoring nature, we're ignoring our environment, and we're trying to come up with all these fake things to eat and heal ourselves and live by as well.
It's literally like we are going against the nature, and the nature is very patient in its nature, but very ruthless in the end, and doesn't take fools kindly.
Nature can be loving and destructive at the same time, just like our emotions too.
Emotions can build you or destroy you if you allow them to. For those that are inspired by your journey and your wisdom and want to dive into your world of holistic healing, where can they start and what's the first step they should take?
I would say to visit my website. It's at www.arukah.com, ARUKH.com. And I do have a free introductory course on the 8 steps to becoming a holistic healer, the 8 secrets to becoming a holistic healer. And it goes through my program. And I think that's a good place to start. And just to continue empowering yourself with knowledge. And again, not be afraid, and trust that God will guide you to the truth of holistic health and healing.
I love that message. In the end, the God and our soul knows what's best for us. So
Absolutely.
I highly encourage you to participate in my course, which are underneath this video, and stay tuned for another episode, and see you soon.